Ooh, how about this? Lucille said, pulling out a short black dress. I don't think so. Phoebe shook her head. She had never worn anything so revealing and was rather self-conscious about her body. Oh, for goodness sake, Lucy, Nora sighed. Stop picking out things for yourself. We're shopping for Phoebe. Well, it would help if you told us about your style. I really don't have one, Phoebe said. Cheap? That will not do. Nora shook her head. Wasn't now is a good time to spoil yourself. Don't even think about the price. They had already finished shopping for Blake and Emma, who were all too happy to grab whatever they liked. Nora insisted on not only buying them clothes but toys and games as well. Now it was Bridget and Phoebe's turn, and it was slow going. Both were hampered by their previous experiences of watching expenses. "You'll look pretty in this one, Mommy," Emma declared, tugging at a pretty yellow sundress. Since receiving permission, she was all too happy to call Phoebe Mommy and was warming up quickly to their new adoptive family members. "Oh yes, she definitely will," Nora agreed, taking out the size she believed would fit Phoebe best. It was a pretty dress that wouldn't be too revealing as it reached as far as her knees. Nora handed it to the sales clerk to take to the fitting rooms as they continued to peruse. Once they had a decent pile, they headed to the fitting rooms for Phoebe and Bridget to model before making the final selection. Bridget found this particularly embarrassing with Noah among the security team, while Phoebe was simply self-conscious. This process continued from one store to the next, but they were making progress. Phoebe cringed at the totals rung up, but neither Nora nor Lucille batted an eye as they swiped their black cards through and continued on. Around noon, they took a break and ate at the food court where the pups marveled at the sheer variety available. Phoebe remained pensive. "Phoebe, dear, don't worry about it," Nora insisted. "But the money—" "It's all right. As Luna, you receive quite an annual stipend," Nora said. "All authority members of the pack do, even Lucille, who technically only holds Gamma rank. You can hardly expect to receive less." Phoebe frowned. "So how exactly does it work?" Bridget asked. "At our old pack, we had our own accounts, and our pay was added automatically at the end of every month." "The same," Nora nodded. "You'll be added to the pack's accounts and given a card. The card you'll be issued will be determined by status, which also determines its limit. Non-professional pack members receive a blue card. Professional pack members, like doctors and the like, have gold cards, and pack authority members have black cards. Black cards have no limits. Bridget, you'll be issued a gold card with a limit approaching that of a black card considering the patent. You'll receive full credit as its creator and a share of the profits." "Really?" "Of course," Nora said. "Blue Moon is very fair in that sort of thing." "And you are sure this trip won't strain finances?" Phoebe asked. "Believe me, darling, Blue Moon could fund 100 of these shopping sprees and not worry about it." "It's fine," Nora patted her hand. "It's a matter of pride for a pack to care for their Luna. Don't insult them by refusing." "Right," Phoebe sighed, still hesitant. "Now eat. Jason will throw a fit if we don't make sure you eat. You are too thin." Phoebe blushed but focused on her cannoli. She certainly didn't want any of them in trouble, and she was hungry. More importantly, she didn't want to be wasteful, especially in front of the children. After lunch, they proceeded to more stores, these ones catering to evening gowns and formal wear. Luna ceremonies were the pride of very pack, in some cases even more important than the Alpha succession ceremony. Nora was certain this one would be even more highly anticipated, given how long the pack had waited for their Luna. She wanted it to be perfect for Jason, Phoebe, and the pack. Traditionally, Lunas wore white or silver, and as it was the closest thing to a human marriage ceremony, some Lunas wore a wedding dress. But this was a new era for Blue Moon. Nora wanted it to be extra special. "Ooh, Grandma Nora, how about this one?" Emma said, loving their shopping spree for Phoebe's dress. Emma's pick was a shimmering silver gown with a cowl-style neckline that would lie beautifully across Phoebe's neck and chest. Nora smiled at the pup. "This is the one. Let's get her to try it on." "Yeah." Emma dragged Phoebe to the fitting rooms where Nora waited. She shoved the escorts away, insisting no one could see Phoebe in her gown before the ceremony. Ushering Phoebe into the room, Nora, Lucille, Bridget, and the pups waited virtually holding their breaths as Phoebe finally stepped out, blushing self-consciously. "Wow," Lucille said. "You look fine, girl." Phoebe's blush deepened. Yes, this is the one, Nora decided. This is the dress. Jace is going to lose it, Lucille giggled, picturing the stunned look that was sure to grace her brother's face. Nora took charge of the dress, paying for it and carrying it herself, insisting no one else touch it. Luckily, it was the last of their purchases, and the group was ready to head home. They were almost to the door when Lucille suddenly grabbed Phoebe and Bridget, pulling them into one last store. Lucy, Nora admonished. We'll catch up. Come on, pups. Nora shook her head, herding the pups onward and forcing their escort to split. Gamma, are we not following? Noah asked as Ben took a stand by the door. One thing I've learned about mates, never bother them when they shop for underwear. What? Noah blinked before looking up at the sign about the door, Victoria's Secret. A deep blush colored his cheeks, and he looked to see the other warriors snickering. Hey, turn around. Backs to the store. Here, we are. Ooh, this one's good. How about it, Phoebe? Lucille asked, holding up a red negligee. Black Phoebe's cheeks turned the same color as the lingerie. Or not? Ike can't wear that. Phoebe shook her head. She turned to see Bridget holding up a black teddy with a thoughtful expression. Bridget? I just thought it might be fun. That's the attitude, Lucille insisted. Sometimes you need to spice it up. Phoebe's blush persisted. Look, you don't need to tell me what you and my brother do behind closed doors. I don't need to know that. But at what stage are you with him? You have kissed, right? Phoebe nodded. Nibbling? A little heavy petting, maybe? Phoebe hid her face. Fair enough. Well, my advice, trust your instincts. My instincts? Yeah, we have incredible shock drives, but it's tempered by our wolves' desire for their mates, or should be. As much as they complain, if we decide to indulge, I don't know of anyone more obsessed with shul pleasure than my wolf, so pay attention to yours. Phoebe didn't answer, but it was food for thought. Mani had been getting more active since they found their second chance mate and making all sorts of suggestions she wouldn't dare repeat. Now let's find something that will give my brother a heart attack. Jason stared at the paperwork in front of him, not really seeing it. He had patrolled the area of the breach, checked the territorial markings, and conferred with the patrols. Satisfied with the countermeasures Ben implemented, he returned to his office to review any pending requests, but his mind kept drifting back to Phoebe. Earth to Jason? Hey, Jace! Jason snapped to attention, glancing at Luke, who had been at his side catching up. Sorry. Nah, it's fine. Luke sat in one of the chairs across from him. It's to be expected. I took 2 weeks off after I met Mona, remember? Jason nodded. It was bad enough he already missed several weeks due to the security tour. Not that he was complaining about the results, but he couldn't afford to fall behind in his paperwork anymore, no matter how much he wanted to curl up in bed with Phoebe and stay there. Lobo whined agreement. Well, that was fun, Ben announced as he entered without knocking. He joined them slumping in the other chair. Lucy was in fine form. She does like to shop. Luke chuckled. Mona had declined the offer to join them, preferring to stay busy with her own work. Prior to joining Blue Moon, she had gone to school for psychology and was currently leading a study on rogues, why they went feral, and what motivated them to attack. Given the rise in attacks, it was important work to be sure. I think they got everything, though. Your mother found Phoebe's Luna dress and wouldn't let anyone else near it. Lucy decided at the last minute to peruse Victoria's Secret. Don't know what they bought, but they all came out with a couple bags each. Really? Jason raised an eyebrow. Luke chuckled at Jason's piqued interest. He had to admit, any time Mona brought home such bags, he was eager for her reveal what she bought after dinner. There you are. Lucille entered without knocking. She sat in Ben's lap and smiled at her brother, who warily eyed her. This is my office, not a lounge. Yes, sir, Mr. Big Tough Alpha. Lucille rolled her eyes. I just thought you'd like to know your Luna is back safe and sound and as innocent as ever, despite my attempts to corrupt her. Jason growled. Oh, would you relax? Lucille laughed. I'm happy for you, Jace. Phoebe is wonderful. She's kind, smart, charming, and has a wicked sense of humor. You should have seen her with the pups today. It was so sweet. It took them all of 2 seconds to call her mommy. Jason's eyes, which had been swirling amber, darkened as he smiled at the image of Phoebe with the pups. Well, it's to be expected. She's been taking care of those pups for a couple years now. Blake's old enough to have some memories of their parents, but I doubt Emma has any, Luke said. So why didn't Phoebe adopt them before now? Lucille asked. During the whole shopping trip, she was concerned about money. If she adopted the pups, her old pack would have offered assistance in raising them. She tried. Rimrock's Alpha denied her application, Luke said. Why would he do that? Lucille scoffed. Luke glanced at Jason before answering. Well, actually, Rimrock's Alpha was her first mate. The one who rejected her? Lucille asked, earning another growl from Jason. Easy, man, Luke said. You know it's true and there's no sense in keeping it from her. Damn, mated twice, Alphas both. That's gotta be a record. Jason glared at her. Okay, sorry. I'm done, Lucille threw up her hands. But why would he deny the adoption application because of that? Best guess, either he wanted to make sure Phoebe was miserable and alone, or he was jealous of the pups getting all her attention and love, Luke shrugged. So he's a narcissist, Lucille rolled her eyes. Poor Phoebe, so what's going to happen with Rimrock now? Who knows, it's not really our problem, Luke said. Now that Phoebe found her second chance mate and left, hopefully Rimrock's Alpha will focus on his pack. Jason remained silent but pensive. That was the best-case scenario, but he didn't expect it to be easy given how many years Rimrock's Alpha neglected his duties. Regardless of what happened, though, Phoebe was safe at Blue Moon, and he would ensure her health and happiness from now on. Yes, mate, stay with us. Oh, Mom wanted me to tell you, Lucille said. We'll be having a welcome party tonight for Phoebe, Bridget, and the pups, so meet the pack and officially join it. That's a little soon, then. Luke frowned. Do we really have to rush? Well, the next full moon is only a couple weeks away, and it happens to be a blue moon at that. It couldn't be a more perfect setting for her Luna ceremony, so Mom wants everything done before that. This is going to be an important night for the entire pack. Jason nodded. They had waited so long for their Luna, his mother wanted to make sure it was special. And what Luna ceremonies always happened on nights of a full moon so that the pairing could be blessed by the moon goddess. But the fact the next one was a blue moon was particularly fortuitous given the pack's name, and they all would consider it a special blessing from the goddess. You know what officially joining the pack means, Luke warned. Jason frowned. Since none of the new pack members had a blood relative among the Blue Moon members, it would mean a blood oath, which meant their blood had to mix with his own. It wasn't going to be pleasant for them, especially the pups. No doubt his mother was already preparing them as best as she could. Phoebe sighed as she looked at the closet. Her side was still quite thin compared to Jason's, but it was more than she ever imagined. By the time they returned, the Omegas had already unpacked her luggage. They also helped carrying in and put away her purchases from today's shopping trip. There was only one bag she wouldn't let them touch, and that was the Victoria's Secret bag, still in her hand. Biting her lip, she tucked it beside the dresser where it was out of the way and hopefully out of sight. Stepping out of the closet, she suddenly found herself enveloped in an embrace. The scent of dogwood and campfire surrounded her as he leaned down to nibble her ear. Jason. Did you have a good time, Angel? Yes. I love your mother and sister. Good. He suddenly swept her off her feet and carried her to bed. Sitting with his back against the headboard, he held her in his lap as he nuzzled her, kissing the nape of her neck and inhaling her earthy scent. Jason. Sorry, Angel, but Lobo needs this. Jason continued to tease and kiss her. Lobo? Jason suddenly pulled away at the mention of his wolf's name. Phoebe looked at him curiously. Finally, he said, My wolf. Her eyes widened and shimmered silver. Oh, your wolf's name is Lobo. Mine is Mani. Jason sighed as Lobo chanted his mate's name. He smiled, playing with her hair. Mani. Beautiful, just like you. Phoebe shivered when he said her wolf's name, and in her mind Mani rolled belly up in sheer pleasure of hearing her name pronounced in his deep baritone voice. In many ways, sharing the name of one's wolf was the ultimate form of intimacy, almost like a dragon or a fairy sharing its true name. Though sharing their wolf's name didn't have quite the same power as that, it was still a deep sign of trust. He kissed her, deepening it when she offered no resistance. Jason suddenly pulled away, leaving her panting. Shh! I'm sorry, Phoebe. I'm so sorry, Angel. I didn't mean to scare you. Phoebe slowly caught her breath, looking at him curiously. Why was he apologizing? Oh, he's so cute, Monty chuckled. He thinks we're afraid. Do be a dear and let him know we enjoyed it. How? Just do to him what he was doing to us. I don't think I can. Phoebe felt her face warm. Sure you can. I'm here. I'll help. Phoebe hesitated, recalling her conversation with Lucille. Is this what she meant by trusting her instincts? All right. Phoebe felt Monty press forward, synchronizing with her as she calmed Phoebe's anxiety and encouraged her. Taking Jason's face in her hands, she pressed her lips to his, kissing him deeply, and silenced his panicked apology. She kissed along his jaw and down his neck, eliciting deep groans as he relaxed, enjoying the electric charges her touch caused. Right there, Monty instructed, where his neck meets his shoulder. That's the marking spot, and it'll drive him crazy. Phoebe hesitated before lowering her mouth over the spot, following Monty's instruction. She ran her tongue along the skin, sucking hard, and felt Jason suddenly tense with a moan. He shuddered as her teeth grazed the spot. She nuzzled him, nipping his ear before slowly easing away. His eyes swirled as he stared into her silver-gray ones. Did you like what I just did? Phoebe asked. He swallowed hard, not trusting his voice, but managed a nod. Good, because I liked it too. He blinked and realized what she was saying. A smile slowly made his eyes sparkle with amusement. So, that's the wicked humor my sister talked about. Wicked? With a growl, he rolled them so she was lying under him before capturing her mouth in a passionate kiss. Her fingers curled themselves in his hair, sending sparks directly to his brain. You play a dangerous game, Angel. Do I? She asked innocently. He growled. His eyes swirled. Hers shimmered in response. Jason kissed her nose and she snorted a laugh. Jason chuckled and nibbled her ear. My mom's planning a party tonight to welcome you, the pups, and Bridget to the pack. I'll make you all official members. You'll also join the pack link so you will be able to mind link anyone you need to talk to. I'm sure they will be clamoring to meet you once I officially introduce you as my Luna. That sounds nice. Though she was still hesitant to be Luna, Phoebe liked the thought of being part of a pack link again. Jason hesitated. Since none of you have blood relatives in Blue Moon, you'll have to take a blood oath. Blood oath? You have to swear loyalty to the pack and me as Alpha, and we seal the oath with blood, Jason said. He traced a line down her palm, watching her reaction. Blood oaths were no longer common. Most packs made do with simple loyalty oaths and opened the pack link to new members psychically. The bond was not quite the same and relied on the mating bond to tether it. Older packs like Blue Moon required a more substantial bond to join pack members, so they still used the blood oath. The pups too? Yeah, it'll only take a moment and we'll have bandages and salve on hand, Jason explained, but it will also seal my connection and bond to them, so it might actually be beneficial in the long run. Phoebe was pensive. Yeah, she didn't want the pups to suffer any pain, but it seemed Jason was already making preparations to ensure their comfort as much as possible. Given Blue Moon's long lineage and bloodline, it was not surprising it employed blood oaths. All right, Phoebe nodded. Thank you, Angel. Jason nuzzled her. They lay together for some time, enjoying each other's nearness and lingering kisses. Jason didn't seem to be in any hurry to get back to his work, but Phoebe didn't mind. Every kiss and caress caused her body to tremble in pleasure she never experienced before, and she wanted more. In truth, Jason was under strict orders to keep Phoebe occupied while the final preparations for the party were completed. He and his wolf had no objections with this arrangement, but eventually the time to join everyone approached. Reluctantly, he retreated to the bathroom for a quick shower before relinquishing it to Phoebe. When she emerged wrapped in a towel, he was already dressed in a black silk button-up and trousers. Phoebe stared at her new wardrobe, asking, "What do you think I should wear? I mean, is it formal?" "Casual is fine," Jason chuckled, hugging her from behind. He bowed his head to kiss her neck and nibble her ear to ensure his scent wrapped around her again. Phoebe moaned softly, leaning against him, and he was tempted to bring her back to bed, but this party was important for the pack. With a sigh, he looked over her side of the closet. Even after today's shopping spree, it was barely a third full, but it was an improvement, and there was plenty of time to spoil her. Anything will be fine, especially if you wear something from that. From what? Phoebe asked before noticing his attention was on the Victoria's Secret bag. She blushed deep red. Is that a no? He asked, not bothering to hide his disappointment. Jason, he kissed her with a chuckle and said, It gets cold after dark, so make sure to pick something warm. All right. Phoebe eventually settled for black, thermal-lined leggings and a gray turtleneck. She stepped out of the closet and looked at her reflection self-consciously. Jason embraced her again, kissing her temple and admiring her modest yet tantalizing look. In truth, she could wear anything and be just as tempting. Leaving their suite, they quietly made their way downstairs. Phoebe made it to the first landing before she hesitated at the pain of the stitches. Without a word, Jason scooped her up and carried her. Jason, I can walk. I know it's better this way. Phoebe laughed, wrapping her arms around his neck and nuzzling him. Jason growled in pleasure. Reaching the ground floor, he carefully set her on her feet and led her to the patio hand in hand. Phoebe hesitated at the sliding doors looking out into the evening, where over 500 pack members were gathered, and more would arrive as the evening progressed. No doubt the attendees were deliberately spacing their arrivals so she wouldn't be overwhelmed, but Blue Moon was such a large pack. She wasn't sure she could do this. Jason hugged her. They'll love you, Angel. Promise. Phoebe leaned into his comforting embrace. If you feel uncomfortable, we can just go, so be sure to tell me, okay? Okay? Good. Deep breath. Phoebe sighed. And here we go. Jason slid the door open and stepped out. The pack immediately fell silent as their alpha finally made his appearance. They sensed an immediate change in him. He had always been tense, disciplined, and logical. At times he was almost cold, but now there was a new relaxed feeling about him. His smile was genuine, and for once it reached his eyes. Their alpha was happy, truly happy, in a way only one's fated mate could make them. Everyone, we're here tonight to welcome 4 new pack members. I'm sure you've heard the rumors and snuck glances whenever you could, but let me introduce them properly. First and foremost, your Luna, Phoebe. Jason turned, reaching into the doorway and drawing Phoebe to his side. She blushed at his introduction, and it was clear she was nervous, but that didn't bother the pack. There was a gentle aura around her that complemented her petite form, but also something else. Her bewitching silver-gray eyes captivated them, and they could just sense the strength that belied her gentleness. There were layers to their Luna, and they were all eager to know more. Jason brought her out in front of him, wrapping his arms around her waist, and kissed her temple. Though she wasn't officially marked, there was no denying his devotion and claim. She was his Luna, and theirs. Any who doubted it would regret it. I'd also like to officially introduce Bridget Johansson. Jason announced, nodded to where she stood in Noah's arms. The warrior bowed his head, kissing her, making it clear she was already claimed. She will be joining our nursing staff, and I can assure you her skills are second to none. And finally, Blake and Emma. Seated at a nearby table, the siblings froze mid-bite as all eyes suddenly shifted to them. The pair wore their new clothes, matching striped sweaters. Blake wore trousers, and Emma a skirt with tights. Nora had given the adorable 5-year-old pigtails as they were her favorite hairstyle. Come here, you two, Jason gently beckoned. They hesitated, but at Nora's encouragement, stood and slowly made their way to their new alpha. Giving Phoebe a final kiss, Jason stepped down crouching so he was at eye level with the siblings. He tousled Blake's hair fondly as Luke approached with a dagger. Emma whimpered at the sight of the gleaming blade. Jason hugged the nervous pup. He knew his mother explained the proceedings, but it was one thing to be told what was going to happen, and quite another for it to actually happen. Shh, little one, he whispered. I promise it'll only be a little prick, then it will be over. Everything will be okay. Emma nodded, but still looked nervous. We'll have your brother go first, okay? Jason gave her one more squeeze before accepting the blade and looking to Blake. Ready? Blake was nervous, but nodded. He was the older brother and determined to be brave. Jason held out his hand, wishing there was another way, but without blood relations, he had no other choice. Blake placed his hand into Jason's much larger palm. Brandishing the blade, Jason pressed it gently into the pup's palm until it broke the skin and a small cut appeared. Without a word, Jason turned the blade on himself, cutting his palm rather deep to ensure it would not heal before he was finished, and pressed their wounds together. I, Jason Amon, Alpha of the Blue Moon Pack, accept Blake Amon as your Alpha and Father. He smiled gently as the pup's eyes widened. I, Blake Amon, swear loyalty to the Blue Moon Pack and accept you, Jason Amon, as my Alpha and Father. Jason's smile broadened, ignoring the subtle gasps of surprise at the addition to the traditional oath. In all his time as Alpha, Jason had only a passing interest in pups. They were his pack's future, so he ensured their security, but he never got personally involved with them. Yet now he was declaring these young orphans were his own. Blake shivered as the pack link opened to him. Welcomes streamed into his mind like a gentle tide. The pack didn't want to overwhelm their new member, so they didn't flood the link as they might with others. Bridget and Nora stepped forward. They lathered healing salve over the cut before bandaging it. Nora hugged Blake, whispering good job to him. She had been worried about the pup's initiation, but that went much smoother than she hoped, even more so since Jason added the last clause. Your turn, sweetie, Jason smiled gently at the waiting Emma. She still looked nervous, but seeing her brother's reaction gave her courage. Nodding, she gave him her hand. As gently as he could, he repeated the procedure and pressed their palms together. I, Jason Amon, Alpha of the Blue Moon Pack, accept you, Emma Amon, as your Alpha and Father. She hesitated and seemed to forget what she was supposed to say. Her panicked gaze fell on Nora, who quietly mouthed the oath. Her eyes lit up in remembrance, and she stated, I, Emma Amon, swear loyalty to the Blue Moon Pack and accept you as my Alpha and Father. Emma gave a squeak as the link opened to her, forging and knitting her soul into the pack. Bridget and Nora quickly cleaned and bandaged her hand, just as they had done for her brother. Since the pup's wolves had not yet emerged, their healing abilities were repressed. The balm would help the cuts close much faster. Jason stood looking at his own hand to see it was already beginning to heal. He had to finish quickly, or else he would have to cut himself again. Nodding to Bridget, he waited for her to step forward. She offered her hand and winced as he cut it. Behind her, Noah growled and struggled not to come to her aid. Bridget Johansson, I, Jason Amon, accept you into the Blue Moon Pack as your Alpha. I, Bridget Johansson, swear loyalty to the Blue Moon Pack and accept you, Jason Amon, as my Alpha. She breathed deep as the pack link opened up to her and she received the others' welcomes. Noah immediately came to her side and held her close, nuzzling her as Nora bandaged her hand. It had taken everything he had not to rush forward when the blade was turned on her. He felt her pain through their mating bond, and his wolf demanded they protect her, no matter how many times he said she was not in any danger. Smirking at his warrior's possessive side, Jason stepped back to Phoebe, wishing there was any other way to complete this ritual. In the end, he simply couldn't turn the blade on his own mate, and Luke had to step forward and cut her palm, while Jason struggled to keep Lobo from ripping his beta to shreds. Pressing their palms together, Jason pulled her close, pressing his forehead to hers. I, Jason Amon, Alpha of the Blue Moon Pack, accept you, Phoebe Lewin, as your Alpha, your mate, and as my Luna. Phoebe shivered, taking a deep breath. I, Phoebe Lewin Amon, swear loyalty to the Blue Moon Pack and accept you, Jason Amon, as my Alpha, my mate, and as your Luna. Smiling, he kissed her forehead, savoring her words and feeling her soul knit into the pack's collective link. She was one step closer to being completely his. Bridget and Nora cautiously approached, quickly bandaging her hand and his, though his wound was nearly healed. Mommy, Emma approached. Does this mean we are a real family now? Phoebe smiled, scooping up the pup and rubbing her nose. Yes, it does. Yeah, Emma squealed, throwing her arms around Phoebe. Phoebe hugged her close, fighting back tears. After her rejection, she had resigned herself to never having pups of her own, so it had been easy to devote herself to the other pups, and in particular, caring for the orphaned siblings. Second chance mates were never guaranteed, so she never considered the possibility, and others warned her males didn't like caring for pups that weren't their own. Does that mean you're our new daddy? Emma asked, looking to Jason. Jason's expression softened as he took both of them into his arms. That's right. Without hesitation, she reached for him, hugged him as he held both close. The pack watched, holding its collective breath. This was a new side of their alpha they had not seen before. As unexpected as it was, they certainly didn't hate it. Already their Luna's presence was being felt as she softened their stern alpha. "Blake, we have a mommy and daddy again," Emma announced, looking to her brother, who stood nearby, hesitating to approach. Jason chuckled, beckoning the anxious pup to his side, before picking up the young one and hugging him close. He felt Blake tremble in his arms, overcome with emotion. It would take time for the pups to become as comfortable with him as they were with Phoebe, but that was all right. Until then, he would keep them safe and cared for. "You have much more than just a mom and dad," Nora corrected. "You have a grandma and an aunt and uncle, too." Emma bounced in Phoebe's arms, clapping her hands as Ben and Lucille hovered nearby. In fact, they had more than just one aunt and uncle. Though Luke and Mona were not related to them as the beta pair, as well as Jason's childhood friend, they would treat the pups as their niece and nephew. Blake seemed overwhelmed by it all, yet he smiled and clung to Jason. Once the pups were comfortable again, they returned to their table to eat under Nora's watchful eye. "You didn't have to do that," Phoebe quietly said as they watched the pups. "I told you, Angel." Jason held her close. "What's precious to you is precious to me." Jason chatted amicably with his pack members. Many asked him about his travels and what other packs were like, as well as the rise in rogue attacks. He answered their questions and tried to ease their concerns. Though there had been some incursions in their own territory, their warriors had stopped them well before they caused any major damage. Jason patrolled their borders himself and assured them the rogues had been driven out. Several congratulated him on finding his Luna. But though he accepted their congratulations, he couldn't help but notice most did not approach Phoebe. His gaze continually sought her out, watching as she conversed and laughed, but the only wolves who approached her were ones she already knew: his mother, sister, Mona, and Bridget. It worried him that the pack was not integrating her. Phoebe had been so isolated in her previous pack, he didn't want that for her here. The servers seemed to be paying particular attention to their new Luna. Not only did several approach her to thank her for her actions at breakfast, but they were also concerned she enjoyed her meal and that her needs were met. Their actions at least gave him some hope that she would be fully accepted by the pack. "Don't look so serious," Luke nudged him. "It's a party." "I'm aware." "What's the matter?" Luke asked. He followed Jason's gaze to Phoebe. She was laughing at something Lucille said, blushing. He could only imagine what racy comment had just been made. "She looks happy. Is there a problem?" "It's been an hour, but no one else has tried to approach her," Jason muttered. "Well, you can hardly blame them," Luke chuckled. "She's surrounded by the former Luna as well as the Beta and Gamma's mates. Not many would approach so many high-ranking members." Jason sipped his beer. Was that all there was to it? His brow furrowed in thought. "Try to relax. The night's still young." Luke patted his shoulder. "So, you adopted 2 pups today?" Jason cleared his throat. "Well, they are living on the alpha floor and my mother adores them." Luke chuckled. "There's more to it than that. I saw you with them after the initiation. You looked like a proud papa." Luke gave him a knowing smile. Jason had always been a good alpha, but there had been distance and disconnect between him and the other pack members. Part of it stemmed from the lack of a Luna as well as an uncertain future with no prospect of heirs. The pack trusted in his strength and leadership, but they lacked true connection. Lunas knitted a pack together, strengthening its collective bonds as well as their bond to their alpha. While alphas were often intense and difficult to approach, Lunas were generally gentler and welcoming. Pack members often brought their concerns to her first. Without a Luna, they sometimes sought Luke or Ben, or more rarely, Mona, Lucille, and Nora. Now that Jason had found his Luna, the disconnection he felt with his pack should naturally resolve itself. While the adults conversed, the pups darted around them playing various games or stealing bits of food. The pack pups were naturally curious about the newly initiated pair and welcomed them into their games. It seemed making friends was easier for younger pack members than their elders. As the pups chased each other, a young she-wolf tripped and fell, skinning her knee. The pup whimpered, but before anyone else could react, Phoebe scooped her up and cuddled her. Carrying the pup to a table, she sat down, cooing softly. Shh, shh, it's okay, sweetie. Whether through the pack link or simply motherly instinct, an Omega brought a damp washcloth. Phoebe accepted it with a smile. This might sting a little, she warned the pup before gently cleaning the injury. The pup whimpered but didn't cry out as it leaned into her, soothed by her gentle aura. Bridget still had the balm and extra bandages, so treating the skinned knee was a simple task. Phoebe cooed to the pup the entire time. You are such a brave girl. There, all done. It doesn't hurt anymore, does it? Good. A brave little one like you deserves a reward. As if knowing exactly what their Luna intended, the Omega server brought a cookie for the pup, who seemed quite content with all the attention. Lexi, a she-wolf, emerged from the crowd, summoned by someone who recognized the pup. What happened? Mommy? The pup smiled with a mouthful of cookie. Look what Luna gave me for being brave. Phoebe smiled at the nervous mother. We just took a little tumble, but she was very brave. Standing, she handed the pup to the worried mother, who apologized. I'm so sorry she bothered you, Luna. Oh, she was no bother. Phoebe shook her head, tickling the pup. She's adorable and such a sweetheart. I think you're sweet too, Luna, Lexi declared. Thank you. Phoebe poked her nose. The pup giggled. Across the quad, Jason watched as his mate tenderly cared for, comforted, and entertained the pup. She had not hesitated a moment to scoop her up, just as she had not hesitated to take in Blake and Emma. Pups definitely brought out her best, and his chest swelled with pride. Mate is amazing. Loho howled in his mind. Jason couldn't agree more. He watched as Phoebe continued speaking with the mother, gleaning who knows what information. Phoebe had a comforting presence that drew others in, and they relaxed as they opened up to her. Eventually, the pup fell asleep and the mother excused herself. After that, it was like a dam broke. Other pack members began to approach, mostly other mothers. Some had doubted the rumors swirling around since breakfast, but they couldn't deny what they witnessed with their own eyes. Jason watched, finally content, as more pack members introduced themselves. Phoebe gave each of them attention as they asked about her old pack and answered her questions about Blue Moon. Despite the growing number of admirers eager to converse with her, she didn't seem overwhelmed or uncomfortable. See, Luke slapped his shoulder. I told you. Jason nodded. There was no denying Phoebe's natural charm. It drew others to her. How her previous pack was able to ignore her was beyond his comprehension. She was not a wolf, meant to live anonymously, or as she put it, a nameless cog. Is that all? Ben chuckled. Stop it. Jason warned, earning more snickers. He growled, but there wasn't much threat to it. Relax, Jace. Luke tried to suppress his laughter. It's completely natural. Ben nodded agreement. The mating bond was not something one could fight, especially between fated mates. If the initial attraction was not overwhelming enough, the longer they were together, the stronger the connection and urge to mark them became. In fact, Jason was playing a dangerous game by holding himself back, yet they knew why he did. Phoebe was not a typical mate. She had been rejected once. Because of that, she did not trust the bond. He wanted to earn her trust rather than forcing the bond. It was a stance Ben respected, but it also meant Jason was putting added pressure on himself to control his wolf and their natural urges. But Jason would not force Phoebe to do anything she wasn't ready for. Ben's gaze slid toward their Luna, watching her sip from the drink she had been given as she conversed with other pack members. Unmated males were keeping their distance lest their actions be construed as a challenge to their alpha's claim, but several she-wolves did introduce their mates. Ah, Jace, is Phoebe much of a drinker? Ben asked. Phoebe? No, I don't think so. At least she didn't have anything in her cottage. Uh-oh. What? Do you think anyone told her that is aconite beer? Jason jerked to attention and looked again to Phoebe, focusing on the container in her hand. A growl burst from him. Who the hell gave her that? Easy, easy. Luke patted his shoulder, not wanting to restrain him. Take it easy. The aconite is less than 0.5%, Ben reminded. Jason only allowed the weakest of the 3 brews on his territory. Though the aconite in the beer wouldn't do any lasting damage, it still hurt their wolf spirits and weakened their connection, at least temporarily. There was also the danger of becoming addicted, just like with humans. Alcoholism was rare for werewolves because their wolf spirits constrained any desire for self-destruction, which made aconite beer so dangerous as it weakened the connection to their spirit. Jason's fur bristled as he fought Lobo for control. Someone had given their mate poison, and he was ready to tear the pack apart to find out who. Luke and Ben's words slowly reached him, and Jason was able to maintain control. They breathed sighs of relief as he calmed. This night was important for the pack to bond to their Luna, and it wouldn't do them any good if their alpha went on a rampage. Phoebe moaned. For some reason, her head felt fuzzy. She felt weighed down, but at the same time it was as if she was floating. Strong arms supported her, lifted her, and carried her. A pleasant smell invaded her nose, making her entire body relax. Groggily, she opened her eyes to see a firm chin softened by dark stubble. Raising her head, she saw the face near hers. "Jason? Feeling all right, Angel?" he asked, looking at her with concern. What time is it? What happened?" "Late. You had a bit too much to drink." "Did I?" He clenched his jaw. Jason had counted at least 5 cans in her hand throughout the night. He hadn't interfered, not wanting to discourage the pack from interacting with their Luna. What was more, she looked so happy. The entire night Phoebe conversed and laughed with the pack, something she never did with her old pack. He let it go too far when it became clear she was a little too drunk. When she turned seeking a chair, she stumbled. Jason was at her side, immediately picking her up. Though she had maintained well up to the point, she immediately fell asleep in his arms. The pack members still lingering outside were concerned, but he assured them she simply had too much. Now he carried up the stairs to their floor. Her head fell back to his shoulder. Her arms curled around him, her face close to his neck, sighing. Softly she muttered, "You smell good? Like dogwood and campfire." Jason shuddered with pleasure at her touch and blushed at her admission. Lobo pranced in his mind, exceptionally pleased. She nuzzled his neck and her embrace tightened. Jason groaned as his skin almost felt electrified at her touch. Reaching the alpha floor, he quickly ensconced her into their private suite, wanting to avoid his mother, who he knew was still up after sending the pups to bed. Laying Phoebe down in their bed, Jason carefully took off her shoes, then hesitated. She should really change into pajamas so she could sleep comfortably. "Phoebe," he smoothed her hair away from her face, taking out the clip, taming it. "Phoebe, Angel, I need you to get up and change." "Angel?" She stirred. "I really like it when you call me that." "You like it when I call you Angel? It makes me feel special." Jason leaned close, kissing her forehead. "You are special, Angel. I won't let you forget it. Can you wake up and change?" She moaned but fell back to sleep. Jason hesitated, not sure what he should do. He wanted her to rest comfortably, but he also didn't want to undress her without permission. With a sigh, he eased back, but she suddenly reached for him and pulled him back. Surprised and caught off balance, he nearly toppled on top of her. Jason caught himself, propping himself up on his elbows. "Don't leave." Phoebe muttered a slight pleading to her voice. "Shh." Jason kissed her gently before bowing his head and nipping her ear. "I won't even leave. I promise, Angel." She sighed, falling back to sleep. Slowly, he eased back and pushed himself off the bed. He stepped back, trying to get a hold of himself. Her scent was intoxicating. Forcing himself away, he retreated to the bathroom and into the shower. He leaned his forehead against the tile as the cold water fell on his heated skin. Lobo whimpered, pacing in his mind. "Get back to mate!" Jason shook his head. "Bet back to mate now. She needs us." "Not until we're in control," Jason insisted. Lobo growled. "I refuse to do anything without her consent, and she's not in any condition to give it. Do you want her to hate us?" Lobo whimpered and finally retreated. Drying himself, he pulled on a pair of sweats before returning to the bedroom. Phoebe, he found, had turned in her sleep, hugging his pillow, where his scent was strongest. He smiled, recalling her confession on the stairs. Slipping into the bed, he eased himself next to her and pulled her into his embrace. Phoebe snuggled against him, breathing deep and relaxing. Jason chuckled, gently caressing her. Lobo finally settled now that she was in their arms. "Soon," Jason promised his wolf. "We'll claim her soon." "Yes, mate ours!" But he couldn't until she was ready. He told her that her word was his law and he would never wrest control from her. An alpha bowed to no wolf but his Luna. Phoebe stirred, snuggling into the warm body beside her. The woodsy scent she loved surrounded her. Her fingers trailed through a mini forest of soft hair, peppering a firm chest. The campfire scent became more pungent and was accompanied by the smell of roasted marshmallows. It made her mouth water. "Angel, unless we plan to finish, it is best to stop now," a husky voice intruded her half-wakeful state. She blinked to find herself pressed against Jason's muscular torso. Her nose inches from his neck where his scent was strongest. Face turning red, she looked up to see Jason watching, his dark eyes swirling. He smiled, leaning toward her, and kissed her longingly. Phoebe moaned as he drew out the kiss, nipping her lip before invading her mouth with his tongue. "Goddess Angel, you smell so good," he huskily said. "But if you're not ready, we definitely need to stop." "I don't know." "Shh, shh." He ran his fingers through her hair, sensing her anxiety. "It's okay. We won't if you're not ready." "Why are you so patient with me?" "Because I love you, Angel, and I want you to be happy and comfortable and safe." He rubbed noses with her as they both slowly came out of their aroused states. When he felt her relax, he kissed her forehead. "I'll shower first. You rest." She nodded and watched him retreat to the bathroom. Phoebe knew the distance was for their own good, but she longed to be near him. What was going on with her? "It's just the bond," Mani said. "It's natural to be attracted to your mate." "Yes, but he is the first male to truly be interested, so it's not any wonder you wouldn't recognize what it feels like to be aroused by someone." "Is that what it was?" And he was definitely interested. His arousal scent is yummy." "Do you mean that marshmallow smell?" Phoebe turned her face into the pillow, breathing deep. The dogwood and campfire scent was strong, and she was just able to detect the roasted marshmallow scent again. She wondered if her scent changed too. Everything was moving so fast. "Actually, you're moving pretty slow," Mani said. "We are?" "Most males can't wait to mate, especially an alpha. He must have some major self-control. Maybe he's not interested." "Don't you dare think that," Mani growled. "It's because he cares that he's waiting. He doesn't want you to have any regrets." Phoebe chewed her lip. "He's trying to romance you, so let him romance you." "How will I now when I'm ready? I don't want to make him wait forever. When you're ready, you'll know. I dare say you're almost ready now. But how will I even know what to do?" "Trust your instincts. That's why I'm here, and trust our mate." Phoebe blushed. Mani had never expressed interest in carnal desires before. Now she was suddenly talking about it so casually. Wolf spirits seldom showed any interest in socks unless it was with their mate, so that probably wasn't unusual. Just go with it and don't think about it too much. Jason sighed, staring at his email, but his mind was elsewhere. Last night she confessed to liking his scent, and she was definitely becoming much more relaxed around him. He was happy her nickname made her feel special. Her previous mate hadn't spent a single minute with her before rejecting her out of hand, and apparently no one else had taken interest in her either. While he didn't like the thought of any male spending time with her, it did upset him that no one saw her perfection. "Well, you're deep in thought," Luke said. "Want to share with the class?" Jason blinked, looking at his beta, who he had ignored for the past several minutes. Luke sat at his own desk off to the side with a curious look in his gaze. "Did something happen last night? Something good?" "No. At least not what you are thinking," Jason said. "It almost happened this morning, though." Luke jerked to attention. "Almost?" Jason folded his hands and rested his chin on them. His mood was pensive as he pondered his own thoughts. "So what happened?" "Last night she said she liked my scent and that I make her feel special." "That's good. So what's got you concerned?" "This morning we kissed." "Okay. I smelled her arousal." "Oh? It's not the first time, but it was definitely stronger this morning than it was before," Jason said. "She almost seemed afraid of it." "Afraid?" "I think it's the first time she's ever felt it, if that makes sense." It was one thing if no one had pursued her as a partner before, but even though Jason saved himself for their mate, he had explored other means of release. Self-gratification was a far cry from being with one's mate, but it helped take the edge off, usually. He certainly never heard of one being unprepared of their natural urges. "So what happened after that?" "I calmed her down." "But?" "She smelled fantastic." Jason sighed, rubbing his face. Luke chuckled. That wasn't surprising. The scent of one's mate always seemed tailored to attracting them, making them hunger for them. Luke had a sweet tooth, so he hadn't been surprised his mate had a caramel note to her scent. "Well, you know she likes your scent. She probably thought you smelled just as good." Jason grunted. Luke gave his friend a sympathetic look. At first, he thought Jason's problem was solved as soon as he scented his mate, but now Luke realized it was only the beginning. Jason was determined to move at Phoebe's pace. Luke only hoped his friend could take the slow pace when everything in him urged him to complete the bond. Alpha. Jason grunted as the border guards opened a link to him. "I'm here." "Alpha Thomas is at the main gate. He says he wants to talk to you." "Thomas?" Jason gave Luke a questioning look. The beta shrugged. Alpha Thomas was a close ally, so a visit wasn't unexpected. However, he usually planned his appearance well in advance. "Does he say why?" "No, but he's here with his daughter and normal escort." "Send him through." Jason waited for their affirmative before closing the link. "Here with his daughter," Luke repeated. They shared a look, both their minds going to the incident at breakfast. "Where is Phoebe?" "At the daycare, last I checked." Jason nodded. Unlike her old pack, here the young ones were minded by a collective of mothers and some unmated she-wolves, each taking turns watching and entertaining them for the day. Naturally, it had been a topic of discussion throughout the course of last night's party, and he wasn't surprised when Phoebe showed interest in it. As an education professional, she would have several ideas of how to improve and organize it. Have Ben find her and stick close. Expecting trouble? Maybe. There were consequences for assaulting an alpha's offspring. Phoebe may be his mate, but she wasn't marked yet. Until then, her position as Luna was unofficial. As far as he was concerned, those were just formalities. Phoebe was his mate and his pack's Luna, and she would not be harmed. Thomas was usually a reasonable wolf, but very defensive when it came to his daughter. However, if he insisted on retribution, he would find Jason was equally protective of his mate. "What do you think?" Jason asked. "This pack will defend its Luna to the death." Jason nodded, satisfied. If Thomas or Katrina intended a fight, it would be one they couldn't win, though he hoped it wouldn't come to that. Their packs had been allies since Jason's great-grandfather's time. He hoped they could maintain amicable relations. After several minutes of waiting, there was a knock on his door. Luke went to answer it, bowing to the Alpha and announcing him, "Alpha Thomas and Katrina." Jason nodded, closing his laptop, and stood. Ignoring Katrina, he greeted Thomas with a handshake. "Welcome. Can I offer you a drink?" "No, that's quite all right," Thomas answered, surprised by Jason's cordial greeting and relaxed demeanor. Jason gestured to one of the couches for them to sit while he sat across from them in a chair. Katrina hesitated, expecting him to ask her to join him, but Jason continued to ignore her. Luke and Thomas's escort remained at the door, waiting for their respective alphas' command. "To what do I owe this pleasure?" Jason asked, feigning ignorance. Thomas cleared his throat, glancing at his daughter to Jason and back again. Jason merely maintained an enigmatic smile and waited. "As you know, my daughter was visiting your pack, and she suddenly returned yesterday very upset. It seems one of your pack members assaulted her." "Did she also tell you that the alleged assault was in retaliation for her assaulting one of my pack members?" Thomas glanced at his daughter, brows furrowed. Jason knew it was unlikely she explained the entire situation. Katrina always cast herself as the victim. "It wasn't my fault," Katrina whined. "I was only defending myself. My beta, Gamma, my sister and myself witnessed the entire incident. Would you like to hear our testimonies?" Jason asked, eyeing her with a frown. Katrina fell silent. "Then there are witnesses to what your pack member did to my daughter," Thomas said, satisfied. "What do you intend for their punishment?" Jason shifted his gaze back to the other alpha. It seemed nothing changed. When it came to his daughter, Thomas was blind and deaf to her misdeeds. Ever since he lost his mate, Thomas doted on his daughter. Jason had no issue with that, but spoiling her did her no favors. "Nothing," Jason simply said. "I don't punish my pack members for defending themselves or each other." "This is unacceptable," Thomas stood. "I demand satisfaction." "You would do well to remember whose office you are in," Jason said, growling, but remained seated. His gaze swirled, waiting for the other alpha to calm down or else complete the challenge. Thomas hesitated before clearing his throat and sat. It wasn't like him to lose his temper or make needless demonstrations. Yet, Jason's outward calm unnerved him. Thomas had known the young alpha since Jason was a pup. Ever since Jason's father passed, Thomas thought himself as an advisor, and Jason usually acquiesced to him as an elder. But now, there was a new dominating aura surrounding the young alpha, and he showed no sign of standing down. Jason, I respectfully request you hand over the pack member who assaulted my daughter for proper punishment. If she wishes to go with you, I won't stop her, Jason said, glancing at Luke. But I will be by her side at all times. With a nod, Luke stepped out. Thomas looked from one to the other, still unnerved by Jason's piercing gaze. Though he had not yet summoned his alpha aura, there was something dangerous in Jason's eyes. It was as if Jason's wolf was pacing around sizing Thomas's wolf like he was a meal. Try as he might, Thomas couldn't shake the intimidation he felt as Jason's calm gaze bore into him. A knock at the door mercifully broke the standoff. Luke stepped in holding the door for a petite, pretty she-wolf. He bowed to her as she entered. Jason was on his feet in an instant, beckoning her to his side. Phoebe gave both curious looks but went to Jason. Luke managed a brief explanation, so she was not surprised to see Katrina or the other alpha. Taking her hand, Jason kissed it before pulling her close and kissing her temple. Both were familiar gestures, so she only blushed slightly in front of their guests. Phoebe, you remember Katrina. Let me introduce her father, Alpha Thomas of the Blood Moon Pack, Jason said. Thomas, this is my mate, and Luna Phoebe. Jason watched as Thomas and Katrina's mouths dropped. He wasn't surprised. Many knew he had been searching for his mate for a long time, but few outside of his pack knew she had been found. Phoebe didn't seem the least bit perturbed. Inclining her head, she calmly greeted, It's nice to meet you, Alpha Thomas. I understand our packs are close allies, so you are always welcome. Shall we sit? Jason asked when neither of their guests replied. Sitting down, Jason gently pulled Phoebe into his lap. One hand remained at her back, while the other naturally rested on her thigh. Phoebe raised a brow at this position, but thinking it rude to mind-link in front of their guests, refrained from questions. She leaned into him, her near arm resting on his shoulder and allowing her hand to rest along his neck. Her fingers curled through the hair on the back of his head and sent tingles through him like electric shocks. Bewildered Thomas and Katrina slowly returned to their seats. To what do we owe the honor of this visit? Phoebe asked as a conversation starter. Alpha Thomas is here because of yesterday, the incident at breakfast, Jason said as delicately as possible. Of course, Phoebe nodded, ignoring Katrina and looking at Thomas. Is this going to a formal apology to us and the pack, or do you prefer to make a personal one to the she-wolf that was attacked? Either is acceptable. Jason fought a smile at Phoebe's matter-of-fact tone. Returning to his position at the door, Luke bit his lip to keep from laughing. Neither expected that response. I'm sorry? Thomas asked. I'm afraid I don't follow. Phoebe inclined her head as if sharing his confusion before saying, Your daughter attacked and maimed a she-wolf yesterday. I would think an apology is very least we should expect. Yes. Well, that she-wolf insulted my daughter first. Phoebe's gaze narrowed as she frowned. I take it then you approve of your daughter's action, and you also believe attacking a pack member, slashing their face with silver-laced claws, is an appropriate response when the wolf in question has forgotten to add pepper to your omelet. Phoebe enunciated every word carefully and gauged his response. It didn't surprise her. He was unaware of the details of yesterday's incident. Katrina didn't strike her as a particularly truthful wolf. Then please tell me, Alpha Thomas, what is the appropriate punishment for your maid when she forgets to fluff your pillow? A week in the cells, I suppose? Jason struggled to contain his mirth as Thomas's face reddened. But Phoebe wasn't done. From the start, the incident left a bad taste in her mouth, and Monty pushed her to speak her mind. Alpha Thomas, having a face scarred by silver claw marks, may not seem like a great hurdle for you and your warriors, but for a young, unmated she-wolf, the prospect is quite devastating. Well, Shut up! Katrina suddenly leapt to her feet. You bitch! Jason growled, but Phoebe barely acknowledged her. She had ignored the she-wolf's presence, but suddenly turned her gaze on Katrina, her gray eyes shimmering silver as Mani pressed close. If you intend to act like a child, you should expect to be treated as one. Since you can't handle a simple conflict without involving your daddy, I suggest you sit down and be quiet. The adults are talking. Katrina's face burned beet red as Jason and Luke fought to keep their laughter contained. Phoebe was so calm it was hard to believe she was the same shy she-wolf they met in Washington. Even Thomas's escort was having a difficult time maintaining his composure. You're nothing. A nobody, Katrina declared. I'm the one meant to be Luna here. Now we both know that isn't true, or else you would be in my seat. Jason squeezed her thigh hard, struggling to appear calm, while inside he and his wolf were rolling with glee. Katrina's mouth dropped like a codfish. No one ever talked back to her. But I thought Katrina and Jason were mates, Thomas finally said, trying to regain some control of the conversation. And what gave you that impression? Jason asked. Everyone knows how long I've been looking for my goddess-given mate. But, Thomas hesitated, Katrina's 18th birthday, we held it here because our pack house flooded. She said she scented you and knew you were mates. You were just playing hard to get. Jason growled, but the tingles Phoebe's caressing fingers made kept his rage in check. However, it was her reply that stunned him completely. Well, she told you half the truth, Phoebe said. She did send her mate, a Delta warrior named Garrison, who she rejected 2 seconds after meeting him. You remember, don't you? You said his name when you rejected him. Phoebe again looked to Katrina, who stood in utter silence. The she-wolf was pale, almost lifeless at hearing her greatest shame thrown at her. You'll be happy to know he's one of our most highly decorated warriors now, Phoebe said. He also met his second-chance mate, a she-wolf named Amber. They have an adorable 2-year-old son, Billy, and they are expecting again. Garrison is hoping for a little girl. Jason shot Luke a confused look, but the beta could only shrug. He knew of Garrison. The young warrior had made a name for himself by volunteering for some of the most dangerous assignments. Luke thought he was like most young males, always testing the limits of their near immortality, but now it sounded more like a wolf dancing on the edge of self-destruction, trying to forget his mate's rejection. Luke remembered being relieved after Garrison met his mate. The gentle she-wolf calmed the warrior, and he stopped taking so many risks. When their pup was born, Garrison couldn't stop grinning ear to ear. How do you know that? Katrina muttered. You weren't even here. I met Garrison today when he dropped Billy off at the pack daycare, Phoebe answered. He was surprised when I asked him if it was difficult getting over his first mate. Apparently, he never told anyone about his rejection except Amber. I told him wolves recognize our own kind. Your own kind? Thomas repeated. Jason is my second-chance mate. He's already done so much to fill the hole my previous mate left, but a rejection isn't something you just forget. It stays with you, lingers, festers, Phoebe answered without shame. That's why I was curious how he coped. What would you know? Katrina scoffed. You're just a rejected cow, and you're a liar. If you like, we can settle all this right now, Phoebe said. As Alpha Thomas's daughter, you have a natural resistance to his command, and as Jason's mate, I have the same resistance to his. So let's have Jason command you and tell the truth, and I'll have your father do the same to me. We'll see who is lying, or we can just summon Garrison. I'm good with either. Or you could sit down and be quiet. Katrina sank into her seat. She had never told a soul about her first mate and hadn't thought about him for a moment since the rejection. It was her assumption he left with his tail between his legs and wasted away somewhere. Never once did she consider the possibility he stayed with the pack or that he made a reputation for himself, let alone started a family. Alpha Thomas? Phoebe turned her attention to the shocked Alpha, who seemed to be seeing his daughter for the first time. Her tone until now had been harsh, but now she spoke gently. I know it's late, but I want to offer my sincerest condolences on the loss of your mate. I can't imagine how difficult it had to have been for you. Thank you. Thomas managed even as his gaze glistened with tears at the mere memory. It's amazing how you have carried on in her memory, and I understand why you have doted on your daughter so much, Phoebe continued, but I hope you are beginning to understand that spoiling her has done her no favors. Since she rejected her goddess-given mate, She will have to take a chosen mate. Right now, I'm afraid you will be hard-pressed to find one willing to settle with her, even with Blood Moon Pack as their prize. Thomas grimaced, but there was no anger left in him or his wolf. Both were shocked by the revelations she had given them and were beginning to understand their princess had become someone else entirely. He couldn't help but think how different it would have been if his mate survived. Katrina lacked a strong female example in her life, which was why he encouraged her to spend so much time with Blue Moon, hoping Nora could provide that example. But whenever Nora criticized or tried to discipline Katrina, Thomas stepped in to shelter his precious daughter. Now he saw he had done more harm. Suitably chastised, Thomas nodded in agreement. There would have to be drastic changes. He looked again at the young woman perched on Jason's lap. It was almost laughable he thought Jason and Katrina were mates. It was clear the moon goddess planned something important for the young alpha to give him such a regal mate. "Thank you for your kind words," Thomas said. "I think my daughter and I have much to discuss. The she-wolf she hurt, if there is anything I can do." "That is very kind of you to offer," Phoebe smiled. "As it happens, a friend of mine created a balm to heal silver wounds." "Really?" He blinked in surprise. Silver was one of their most profound weaknesses, and many sought ways to combat it and the wounds left behind. Could a cure actually have been found? "I would like to tell you more, but Jason is applying to the council for a patent. Hopefully we'll hear back soon and can make a public announcement." "Yes, of course, that is very wise," Thomas nodded. He would have done no less. "We should be going. I would like to meet that she-wolf another time and offer my apologies for all of this." "That would be very kind," Phoebe agreed as she and Jason stood. Shaking hands with them, Thomas offered congratulations before taking his leave, dragging Katrina with him. Luke held the door for them before closing it and escorting their visitors out. As soon as the door closed, Jason swept Phoebe off her feet, spinning her around before flopping back on the couch. "Goddess, you were so sexy," Jason mumbled, "the way you handled both of them, and when you said she'd be in your seat, I thought I was going to lose it." "Goddess, you smell so good." Jason pulled away before he could eat her alive. "Tell me what you want, Angel. What do you need?" "Shh, Angel," Jason whispered. "It's all right?" She drifted off to sleep as he stumbled to the bathroom. He returned with a warm washcloth and cleaned her lovingly, wincing at the small amount of blood. It was another thing he was told to expect for a she-wolf's first time, but he hoped he hadn't hurt her. Tossing aside the cloth, he crawled back into bed and took her into his arms before falling into contented sleep. His mate sound asleep in his arms. Phoebe stirred. Her body felt heavy. She ached with a particularly odd sensation between her thighs. Her mind slowly stirred and memories filtered back to her, playing with the pups, meeting parents, the audience with Thomas and Katrina, and then her eyes widened at the memory of what she and Jason had done. "They didn't—" "Oh, you did," Monty hummed. "This isn't funny. I agree, what he did was quite serious. Didn't it feel amazing?" "But, no buts. This is what mates do, sweetie. I know I should have made you watch some filthy movies once in a while. What is he going to think of me after that? He's going to wonder how he can convince you to let him do it all again." Phoebe felt herself warm with embarrassment. "I told you, this is what mates do. Usually multiple times." "Monty!" "Well, it's true. It's not even nighttime." Phoebe wasn't sure what time it was, but she had been summoned to the office shortly after noon. "What does that matter?" "I'm surprised he didn't take us right there in the office. I suppose he wanted your first time to be special. How am I even going to look at him again?" "Even better, let him take you from behind." "Monty." "Angel, you smell fantastic right now." Jason lazily stirred, tightening his embrace. "Do you know you get a spicy note to your scent when you're aroused?" Do I?" I've always loved Indian food now, I know why. It was all to stimulate my appetite for you." Phoebe shivered. He nuzzled her, nibbling her ear. "Shall we keep going, Angel?" he whispered, just as there was a knock at the door. He growled at the interruption. "What was that?" Phoebe asked. "Just dinner. It's nearly 6. I linked the cooks to bring something up and leave it at the door." "What?" "Oh." Her stomach rumbled. "Seems my Angel is hungry for something other than me," Jason chuckled, kissing her. We'll have to take care of that, so I'm back at the top of the list. Jason? Phoebe looked over her shoulder as he slipped out of the bed. She caught sight of his ass as he ducked into the bathroom. Blushing, she looked away, trying not to picture his lean, muscular form. So, yummy, Monty sighed. I can't wait to meet his wolf. Phoebe tried to marshal her thoughts as Jason emerged. He had slipped on a pair of sweats and was pulling on a t-shirt as he stepped out of the large closet. Studying him, she couldn't help but picture him in all his glory. Sensing her gaze, Jason smirked. Phoebe blushed, hiding her face in the pillow, but that was soaked in his scent. You shouldn't be embarrassed, Angel. Jason leaned over her, turning her face to his and kissing her tenderly. All of this belongs to you. You can undress me mentally or physically anytime. Jason. She squeaked, her blush growing fierce as he chuckled, kissing her neck. My Angel is so innocent, but I like that. I'm afraid I'd have to kill anyone who had been with you if that wasn't the case. You wouldn't, Phoebe jerked away, staring at him wide-eyed. An alpha is very possessive of his mate, Angel. I wouldn't put anything past me. You have no idea what it takes to keep from hunting down your former mate and putting him out of your misery, and he didn't even touch you. Jason. Shh. He kissed her gently. Don't defend him. Don't even think of him. Think about me instead. Leaving her with a smile, he went to retrieve their waiting meal before it got cold, though he expected them to use hot plates to keep it all fresh. Phoebe hesitated a moment before she slipped out of bed. I should get dressed. Or just wear the robe, Monty suggested. Our mate will appreciate the view. Ignoring her wolf, Phoebe slipped into the closet. It seemed they were eating in, so she didn't need to wear anything extravagant. Still unsure, she selected a pair of shorts and a hoodie. Stepping out, she found Jason had wheeled a cart in from the hall. He arranged the dishes on the coffee table in front of the large couch and was uncorking a bottle of wine that was chilling in a bucket of ice. Wine? Phoebe asked as he approached. Seems the kitchen wanted to make dinner as romantic as possible. Jason grinned, pouring them glasses. Like beer, there were special werewolf wines blended with aconite to enhance the alcoholic stimulations, but knowing their alpha didn't enjoy such things, the kitchen had chosen a human variety without the addition. They didn't want to be the reason his mood was ruined. Romantic as possible? Phoebe repeated, her face suddenly going red. Don't tell me. They know. He glanced at her, raising a brow. About what? About what we did. Their Alpha and Luna disappeared in the middle of the day and then request dinner in their room. I'm sure they have a fair idea what that means. Goddess! Phoebe hid her face in her hands. How would she face any of them again? Angel. He chuckled, embracing her and kissing her forehead. It's fine. When Luke and Mona were first mated, I didn't see him for 2 weeks. Ben and Lucille were even worse. Phoebe slowly relaxed. No one will blame their Alpha and Luna for wanting to take a day. I can't disappear for a week, but a half a day won't be begrudged. Besides, it will comfort the pack. Comfort? We're still unmarked, so their bond with you and yours with them is not complete. But the closer we are, the more they will sense you through me. Right. She leaned against him as he nuzzled her. Now let's eat. He led her to the couch and revealed the kitchen's hard work. Beef stroganoff, green bean casserole, tossed salad, and rhubarb crisp for dessert. They enjoyed the meal with little conversation. Jason concerned himself with making certain she was satisfied. He was determined to increase her meals as much and as often as he could. Hunger satisfied, they sat together on the couch, enjoying their close proximity. Jason held her, letting her recline against his chest while she relaxed. So what do I normally smell like? Phoebe dreamingly asked. She couldn't remember her stomach feeling so full. Lilac and sage. And it gets spicy when I'm... He nuzzled her, catching the slightest hint of it now. His chest rumbled with pleasure. Phoebe fell silent, thinking about that. The lilac and sage she understood. After all, she spent a lot of time in her mother's herb garden, but she couldn't stomach spicy foods. Her mother never used anything stronger than turmeric because of that. What about me? Jason asked. Dogwood and campfire, Phoebe answered, hesitating. And when you're stimulated, you smell sweet like roasted marshmallows. That's weird. Why? I really don't like sweets, especially marshmallows. Well, I don't like spicy food, Phoebe snorted. but my parents used to take me camping in the backyard all the time. My dad told stories while we made s'mores. So I smell like marshmallows, which you love, and you smell like spices, which I love, Jason said. It's quite a coincidence. Is it? Phoebe fell silent. Is it really a coincidence that we would be fated mates and smell like each other's favorite things? Phoebe pondered that, suddenly remembering something she had forgotten a long time ago. Oh, what is it, Angel? When I first scented Graham and knew he was my mate, he smelled like evergreen and chocolate. Neither one of those are my favorite. What do you suppose that means? That he didn't deserve you, and you shouldn't think about him anymore. Because I have you? That's right, Angel. You have me. He kissed her, nibbling her ear and working down her neck. I love you, Jason, Phoebe sighed. I love you, Phoebe. Shall I show you how much? Yes, show me. Graham growled, stirring from his drunken state in the middle of the abandoned cottage. At the moment he lay in what had been Phoebe's bedroom. Her scent had been strongest here, but now was stale and fading. Alpha Jason had not been joking when he instructed his pack to take everything. Every scrap of furniture, every shelf, even the fridge had been removed. There wasn't a trace that a wolf ever lived in the cottage, except him and the beer cans that littered the floor. Every room was littered with cans, evidence of his obsession since her departure. That day replayed in his mind endlessly, as another alpha claimed what was his. As if that wasn't bad enough, Phoebe seemed to reciprocate, calling out to Jason for comfort. Then, before Graham knew whether she was all right, Jason swept her away and took every last part of her with him. His parting words still burned in Graham's ears. She'll call my name as I fill her up. Graham growled, throwing a can through the window he broke the night before in a drunken fit. How dare that alpha touch what was his? Graham would make him pay, and then he'd take back what belonged to him. Suddenly his chest felt tight, and he struggled to catch his breath. A burning sensation crawled out of the pit of his stomach, bringing an acrid taste to his mouth. He convulsed, emptying the scant contents of his stomach onto the floor. He managed to catch his breath, only for a burning sensation to erupt through him like he was injected with pure wolfsbane. Graham clawed at his skin as the feeling trailed through his veins. Writhing on the ground, he howled in pain. What's happening? Mate is with him, his wolf whimpered vaguely. Graham almost didn't recognize the voice. It had been years since Grimm spoke to him, not since he marked Christie. So surprised by his wolf's response, he didn't immediately register what was said. Suddenly he howled in rage. She's with him, his wolf whimpered. Graham crumpled as the realization hit him. This was the pain of betrayal, as she mated with someone else. Though he rejected her and marked another, his wolf still maintained a tenuous connection he had not known. Over the years she never took another male, so he never felt anything through the bond, though his betrayal cut her deep. Now he felt the pain she endured when he was with Christie. It seemed like hours before the pain eased, and he passed out again. Michael found him still on the floor. Sneering at the dozens of cans littered around the alpha's prone form, he hoisted up the unconscious body and hauled him to the pack house. Reaching it, Michael ordered a pair of Omegas to follow him up to the alpha floor, where he dumped the body into the tub, instructing them to clean him up. They complied, without a word. What's going on? Christie asked, looking in and wrinkling her nose. Nothing to worry about, Luna, Michael answered. He's drunk again. I'll handle it. Was he there again? I said I'll handle it. Scoffing, she spun on her heels and disappeared. Michael sighed. Between his drunk alpha and Luna, the pack was descending into chaos. Their patrols had stopped completely. In fact, the warriors didn't even train anymore. Instead, they lounged about ordering Omegas around like barmaids. He'd had to lock up a few to sober them up after they tried to force themselves on the young she-wolves. Paperwork wasn't getting done, and proposals were lying in waste. As much as he and the Gamma tried, there was only so much they could get done without an alpha's authority. The deterioration had been going on for years, but increased quite recently, and now he knew why. When Graham returned to the pack, announcing Christie was his mate, and Luna, none of them questioned it. It wasn't until later Michael began to suspect Christie was not his fated mate. By then she was already mated and marked. Christie had no interest in pack affairs and was unconcerned with the education and development of the pups. She ignored requests from the she-wolves, especially the low and unranked. Christy brought no sense of unity or cooperation. Instead, she let resentments fester and the pack structure slowly broke down. Only one wolf held it together. She worked quietly behind the scenes. Others sought her out for advice and comfort. Taking the pups' care onto herself, she provided a place for them to belong and learn new skills. She even took in 2 orphans as if they were her own. How could he have been so blind? Christy was not Luna material. Phoebe was. Michael sighed. Despite her rejection, and it had to be a rejection, she carried on her duties even without Luna's authority, quietly knitting the pack's deteriorating bonds. But that was over as soon as Alpha Jason set foot on their territory. No doubt he scented his mate immediately. The barbecue had to have been the moment he finally saw her. Michael recalled how Phoebe briefly appeared before disappearing with the pups. Alpha Jason did a remarkable job keeping a low profile considering how long he had been looking from his mate. While he remained at the party, Beta Luke had disappeared. Michael hadn't thought anything of it at the time, but now he realized the visiting Beta had been sent to keep an eye on his pack's Luna until Jason could claim her himself. He had been too distracted trying to keep Graham sober during Jason's visit to pay attention to the warning signs. How was he supposed to keep the pack together now? His Alpha was soused and their Luna was an airhead. Neither one of them had any desire nor the ability to lead the pack. Graham woke with a start, shoving away the Omegas, trying to drag him to bed after cleaning him up. Growling dangerously, he scared the pair away. They disappeared, leaving Michael to handle the disorientated Alpha. "There is no more beer," Michael said as Graham stumbled toward the fridge. "You drank it all. Buy more. With what funds? The pack is broke. Get more. All of our businesses are in foreclosure because you've been too drunk to maintain them." Graham spun around ready to fight but suddenly crumpled in pain. He sank to his knees, unable to stand. "What's wrong?" Michael asked. "She's with him." Realization hit Michael. Graham's wolf never relinquished its bond, and now he was feeling her betrayal as she mated with another. If his wolf was this obsessive to have maintained the bond, there was no way to convince it to break it now. "Doc?" Michael opened his mind link to the pack doctor. "Beta, how much wolfsbane would you need to temporarily break the bond of one's wolf?" "That depends. For how long? At least a few hours." "Why would you need to?" "It's for the Alpha." "I see, I'll be right there." Michael waited until he heard the knock. Letting in the doctor, they hesitated as their Alpha writhed on the floor. Grimly, the doctor prepared a syringe with a clear liquid. Once ready, he nodded to Michael. The Beta held down their Alpha as the doctor injected the syringe's contents. They stepped back as Graham snarled before falling silent. He lay sprawled out on the floor. Breathing sighs of relief, they watched as he lay passed out. "How long will it last?" Michael asked. "I'm not sure how long he will stay out, but his wolf should stay quiet for a couple hours, maybe." "Only a couple?" "Alphas have a much higher tolerance for wolfsbane than other wolves, and he's been a heavy drinker for years. Given the disconnection between him and his wolf, it's difficult to estimate how his recovery will be affected. Let's just hope Alpha Jason decides to take it easy, given it's his Luna's first time." The doctor hesitated, then asked, "Then it's true Phoebe really was his mate and should have been our Luna?" Michael nodded. "I guess that makes sense. Certainly explains a few things." "What do you mean?" "Only that there always seemed to be a particular aura about her. It was calming. She wasn't like the other low-ranking she-wolves." "You knew her well?" "No. She came to the Pack Hospital regularly to visit her friend, a nurse. Betty. No, Brittany. They were really close." "Is that nurse still here?" "No, she's gone." "You didn't know?" "One of the Alpha Jason's warriors was her mate. She went with them." He took those orphans she was caring for, too," Michael sighed. "That means all her close bonds are with her in her new pack. Were you thinking of trying to lure her back?" "The thought crossed my mind, but Alpha Jason definitely isn't letting her out of his sight. Alphas are very possessive." The doctor shuddered with the memory of Jason's aura. Especially ones like him. "Fire! Fire!" The panicked call stirred both of them to action. Leaving the unconscious Alpha, Michael and the doctor darted outside and followed the link, eventually coming to Phoebe's cottage, or at least where it used to be. It was engulfed in angry flames. The flames had spread to the garden. The burning herbs added an odd aroma to the rising smoke. Standing in front of the conflagration was a proud Christie. Marching up to her, Michael gripped her arm. "What did you do?" "I took care of the problem," she smirked. "Do you have any idea what this is going to do to him?" "This is all that p***'s fault," Christie huffed. "This pack is better off without her." "She was the only one holding this pack together," Michael growled. "Watch it, Beta. I'm Luna." "You were never Luna," Michael declared to the stunned pack members. "You've done nothing but tear this pack apart, and I will not protect you any longer. I renounce you as my Luna." He marched away from her toward the growing crowd. "Get back here, Beta," she ordered. Her Luna aura washed over him without effect. The disconnect between her and the pack was too great. She had no power to make demands of them anymore. "I said get back here," she demanded, but he ignored her. "Get buckets now," Michael ordered the other pack members. "We have to keep the fire from spreading. Let's go." The pack members complied. Soon they made a bailing brigade and splashed water along the perimeter of the fire, keeping it contained as it slowly consumed itself. After an hour, it had burned itself down and the chances of spreading were minimal. Michael sent the majority of the pack to bed, selecting a handful of warriors to guard and watch as the embers slowly died. "You are going to pay for undermining my authority," Christie growled as Michael continued to stand watch. "What authority? You've squandered what little you had," Michael snorted. "You think those wolves you dragged to your bed did so because they were in love with you? Abusing your authority is the surest way to lose it." "You take that back." "Truth hurts, doesn't it? You've been here for years and never took the least bit interest in this pack. Well, now it's turning its back on you. And you have no one to blame but yourself." Before she could retort, a howl of rage echoed around them. Michael cursed under his breath. He had forgotten all about his Alpha. Spinning, he saw Graham bristling with rage, baring his fangs as his wolf fought for control. Michael looked to the pack doctor, who shook his head. He didn't have another dose on him. Graham stumbled forward, his gaze on the slowly dying flames. "What happened?" he demanded. The pack members still gathered, bared their necks, but none dared to speak as his aura washed over them. It had been a long time since they felt his authority. "I said, what happened?" "I did what you didn't have the balls to do," Christie declared, tilting her nose up. His rage-filled gaze fell on her. "You need to stop obsessing over that. I'm your Luna, remember?" Before she said another word, his hand shot toward her, slashing open her throat. Wide-eyed in disbelief, Christie crumpled to the ground like a puppet that had its strings out. "Graham, you need to calm down," Michael said. "Were you in on this too?" "No, of course not." Graham growled, his wolf barely in check. "Look, I'm sorry. Maybe if I'd been paying closer attention when you first brought Christie here, I would have realized what's done is done. We have to focus on the pack now. We can still put it back together, and later you can find a new Luna." "I already have a Luna." Graham snarled. "She's gone. She's been claimed by another. You can't challenge him." "Watch me." With a howl, he suddenly shifted into his large brown wolf. Michael took a step back. It had been years since he saw his Alpha's wolf. He bared his neck to the enraged Alpha wolf. He certainly didn't want to be seen as a threat. With a snarl, the wolf leapt off into the night. "Shh, Beta. I need trackers. The best we got, now. And someone dispose of this garbage." Michael scoffed at the Luna's torn body. His concern was for his Alpha and his pack. He didn't have time to worry about her. At least she couldn't do any more damage. Phoebe stirred. Her head rested on Jason's shoulder. Her arm lay across his gently rising and falling chest. It was oddly contradictory but satisfying. "How are you feeling, Angel?" Jason asked, sensing she was awake. "What time is it?" 5. "Pack should be stirring soon. That means we have to get up too. Or we can call it a vacation. I'm entitled." "Is that any sort of attitude for an Alpha to take?" "If it means spending the day with my beautiful Luna, why not?" Jason nuzzled her. She tried not to laugh as she snuggled closer. His embrace tightened and she caught the scent of his arousal already stirring. She heard rumors of an alpha's stamina, but he was truly insatiable, though his lovemaking was tender. His concern was always for her satisfaction and comfort. His kissed the top of her head. "What are you thinking about, Angel?" "So last night was your first time?" "Yeah, it was," Jason caressed her. He would never tire of the feel of her skin against his. "Angel, it's just, was it good for you?" "I couldn't imagine a more perfect night," Jason kissed her forehead. She blushed as he pulled her close, kissing her deeply. His warm scent surrounded her, teasing her, enticing her. She could feel her own need rising to answer his. Reluctantly, she pulled away, trying to collect herself. "We should get ready for the day," he sighed. "My Luna is too studious. And my Alpha is spoiled." He growled, rolling over so she was under him. "Say that again." "That you are spoiled?" "The other part." Her brow furrowed. "You mean when I said my Alpha?" "That's the part." He leaned forward and kissed her. "I'm yours forever." "And I'm yours," she whispered. "My angel." He rubbed noses with her, teasing and coaxing her. "Well, your angel promised the pups she would teach them about herbs today. I can't disappoint them." He growled but relented. "Your wish is my command, but know this, love, we will be continuing where we left off tonight." "Promise?" He kissed her again. "Promise." Reluctantly, he let her sit up. Phoebe groaned at her body's stiffness, carefully stretching. Worried, he sat up, massaging her shoulders and back. She leaned into his, touched. "Are you okay, Angel?" "Yeah, just sore." "I'm sorry. I should have been gentler." "No," she sighed as his arms wound around her. "You were very gentle. It's just—" "It was your first time," he nuzzled her. "I should have known better than to carry on so long." There were some things even a werewolf's recovery rate couldn't completely combat. Only time and activity would help her loosen her tightened muscles as well as acclimate her body to such activity. Right now, there was only one other thing that might help her. "Wait here, Angel." He kissed her temple before heading to the bath. A few minutes later, she heard the water running in the bath. Phoebe realized what he intended and smiled at his consideration. A warm soak did sound good, and they still had some time. Returning to the bedroom, he scooped her up and carried her. Phoebe laughed. "I can walk." "Not while I'm here, Angel." Steam was already fogging the mirrors. Setting her on the edge of the bath, he helped unwrap her bandage to see her wounds were mostly healed and the stitches were ready to be removed. Jason frowned a moment before grabbing a small scissors and gently clipping the stitches out. He would accept the doctor's punishment, but right now making Phoebe as comfortable as possible was his priority. Settling her down in the warm water, he joined her, pulling her into his lap and gently washing her. Phoebe sighed, leaning against him, enjoying the trail of electricity his touch left along her skin. She smelled his arousal even before she felt his erection. "It seems you have a one-track mind," she said, reaching back to caressing his cheek. "It's because I'm touching you. I can hardly be blamed for that," Jason nipped her ear. "All that matters is making you comfortable. I can take care of that later." "Or we can take care of it now," Mani suddenly suggested. "Mani? What? Exercise will help loosen you up." Phoebe stifled a laugh. Who knew her wolf would be so insatiable? "What is it, Angel?" Jason asked, confused by her sudden mirth. "Nothing, just my wolf." "Oh, did she say something interesting?" Jason asked, hoping to encourage her to speak more with her wolf to strengthen their bond. He noticed her gray eyes occasionally flashing silver, a sure sign her wolf was close to the surface. A fact Lobo confirmed. Given his wolf linked hers without issue, as well as the fact it communicated with Phoebe, must mean it was emerging more often. Wolf or no wolf, he loved her the same, but for her sake, he wanted her to be whole. She did. And what was it? Phoebe hesitated before she changed position, straddling him. Jason sucked in his breath, realizing the danger of this position. "My wolf said we should take care of your issue now." Did she? Jason's throat went dry. Was this really going to happen? Angel? She leaned forward, kissing him. His arms came around her, caressing her, but he didn't try to force her. She was in charge. Briefly, she hesitated, as she had never done this before. "Relax, I'm here," Mani said. "Trust me, I'm your instincts after all." Phoebe slumped against him. He held her gently, caressing her as she slowly recovered. Stirring, she shyly met his gaze, asking, "Was that okay?" She blushed. It amazed him she could still be embarrassed after their long night session. I told you. Your wish is my command. I'm yours however you want me, Jason kissed her. I love you, she smiled. I love you. So the witch said if I didn't comply, she would give me 2 heads. So I said make it 3. I already have 2, Luke said, looking at Jason, who had been staring at his computer screen for the last 20 minutes. Earth to Jason. Jace! Hey! Jason blinked, coming out of his daze. Blinking, he looked at his beta and asked, What was that? Forget it, Luke sighed. Did something happen between you and Phoebe? You're distracted, but you don't seem upset like yesterday, so it was something good, right? After he escorted Alpha Thomas out, Luke had returned to the office to find it abandoned. The lingering scent told him his Alpha and Luna had gotten rather heated in his absence. Given the conversation he and Jason had earlier, he worried she had fled in fear and assumed Jason had gone after her to reassure her. The pair didn't come down for dinner. He overheard the cooks talking about how the Alpha and Luna were having dinner together in their room. It gave Luke hope they resolved the issue amicably and were spending time strengthening their bond, perhaps watching a movie. Luke still couldn't believe how she handled Thomas and Katrina. It was like poetry. Ben and Lucille asked him to repeat the story at least 5 times, both lamenting they missed it. Even Nora applauded Phoebe's bravado. Jason and Phoebe arrived at breakfast holding hands. He kissed her hand just as Blake and Emma ran up to them loudly greeting, Mommy? Dad? Phoebe laughed and picked up Emma to rub noses. Jason followed suit with Blake. Since he mixed his blood with theirs to initiate them into the pack, they carried a slight undertone of his scent. Ordinarily, this would fade into the general pack scent, but he strengthened it daily by rubbing his scent on them, reminding all they were his acknowledged pups. His scent also made it easier for his wolf to accept the pups as his own, though Lobo didn't seem to have any difficulty in that area, anything to please their Luna. For her part, Phoebe was delighted they were officially hers. They carried the pups back to the table, where they had been eating under Nora's watch. Jason set Blake down and retrieved plates for himself, and Phoebe piling hers high, intent on increasing her meals any time he could. They chatted easily with Nora about the Luna ceremony. Lucille joined the conversation, asking all sorts of questions about her preferences. Phoebe laughed at her sister-in-law's eagerness. Everything seemed fine, so Luke allowed himself to relax. Now Jason sat at his desk, distracted. Perhaps the beta dropped his guard too soon. I mean, you and her are good, right? She said she loves me, Jason said after a moment. What? Luke jerked to attention. She said what? She said she loves me. Jason couldn't control the smile on his face if he tried. Lobo ran circles in his mind, practically giddy. This calls for a drink. Luke stood going to the liquor cabinet as he linked Ben to join them. He selected a bottle of whiskey and 3 glasses, bringing them to the coffee table, and gestured for Jason to join him. Ordinarily, he would have objected, but this time he acquiesced and sat down while Luke poured the drinks. Luke handed him a glass just as Ben arrived. What the hell? I rushed over here because you said it was important and I find you drinking? We're not drinking, Luke handed him a glass. We're celebrating. Celebrating what? Phoebe said she loves me. Damn, Ben sank into a chair. When? He was just getting to that, so spill it. Tell us everything. Did she say it last night? No, this morning after we mated. After what? After we mated, Jason repeated, his face blushing deep. Way to bury the lead, Ben said, slapping his shoulder. I'm gonna need another drink, Luke announced. So tell us, Ben insisted. After Alpha Thomas left, you 2 disappeared. What happened? I couldn't help myself, Jason said. The way she handled them both, all while she was sitting in my lap, goddess, she was just too damn sexy. Luke said it was a sight to behold, Ben nodded. Sorry I missed it. I thought I was going to die trying to hold in my laughter, Luke chuckled. You and me both, Jason joined him. And we weren't the only ones. Thomas's escort was practically shaking from holding it in. So what happened after? Ben asked after they had their laugh. Once we were alone, I thought I was going to eat her alive. I was so turned on. It smelled like it got pretty heated, Luke nodded. Did she get scared with all of that attention? No, the opposite. Jason shook his head. Opposite? Ben repeated with a smile. So you 2 didn't disappear because she was upset. You disappeared to finish. A pink tinge warmed Jason's cheeks as his beta and gamma laughed. Both had been mated for a while, so they understood what it was like in the beginning. It was overwhelming and overrode just about everything. They certainly wouldn't fault their alpha for succumbing, especially given how carefully Jason had been romancing his Luna. So, in other words, it was a very good night, Ben said. We should have known when you had dinner delivered. She was too self-conscious to go down to the dining hall. Ben raised an eyebrow, knowing it wasn't just Phoebe's first time but also Jason's. The Gamma doubted it was only her who was self-conscious. This was all new to Jason, but he seemed to be doing well for himself without assistance. So you had dinner together, and we talked and other things, and this morning she told me she loves me. What's going on in here? Lucille asked as she entered without knocking. Drinking before noon? We're celebrating, Ben said as she sauntered in and sat on his lap taking his drink for herself. Celebrating what? Our Luna told our Alpha she loves him, Ben said. And they are mated, Luke added, nearly causing Lucille to spit out her drink. Seriously, Lucille exclaimed, staring at her brother, who blushed deeper. I thought there was something different about you. So my celibate brother finally managed to seal the deal. Jason scowled at her. Both of them had chosen to wait until they found their fated mates because of their mother. Lucille was lucky her mate was a member of their own pack, even if she was slow to realize it. Jason's mate had been much harder to find, but he refused to accept any other, which had led to more than one argument with their father over the years. Well, this is a day worth celebrating. Lucille held up her glass and downed it. Favorite color? Blue. Phoebe chuckled. That's a little cliché. Jason smiled, loving the sound of her laughter as he entwined his fingers with hers. Maybe, but I'm leaning more toward silver these days. They lay together enjoying each other's company after a passionate session. It seemed their appetite for each other was becoming insatiable. Her reactions thrilled him, pushing him to explore more of her. What about you? Green. Really? It's calming and it's the color of spring and life. It suits you. Thank you, Phoebe sighed, snuggling closer. Jason, you are incorrigible, Phoebe chuckled. You can hardly blame me when such a beautiful she-wolf is lying in my arms, smelling as delicious as you, he whispered against her neck, where her scent was the strongest. I suppose it's a good thing you don't need encouragement since I don't have any experience with that. Jason paused, pulling back to look at her. You know I waited. Do you know why? Phoebe shook her head. She sensed there was a story, but had been too embarrassed to ask in case it was personal. It's because of my mother, Jason explained. She and my father were fated mates. They tell you meeting your fated mate is supposed to be magical, right? Phoebe nodded. Her parents told her the same thing. Meeting her fated mate had been anything but magical, and she almost ruined meeting her second chance because of it. Well, my parents' first meeting was one to remember, Jason sighed. My father didn't wait for his fated mate. He actually had several relationships with various she-wolves in his pack and other packs. His most consistent partner was a blue moon warrior named Blanche. He paused, and Phoebe waited for him to continue when he was ready. Anyway, a friend and ally of his had his alpha ceremony, so my father attended and brought Blanche with him as a sort of bodyguard and for other things. While they were there, they ducked into a bathroom for a quickie, and while Blanche was satisfying my father, my mother walked in on them. Phoebe gasped. Jason kissed her forehead. Yeah, my mother was the daughter of the pack's Gamma, but spent a lot of time at her mother's pack with her maternal grandparents who were betas, so she and my father hadn't ever met until that moment. Of course, my mother's eyes went right to the she-wolf and immediately felt the pains of his betrayal. Jason paused, remembering the hurt in his mother's eyes when she told him the story. She ran out of the room. My father knocked Blanche over, trying to follow. He didn't even know my mother's name, her pack, nothing. He caught up to her and convinced her to give him another chance. She refused to go with him immediately because she didn't want to travel in the same vehicle as Blanche. So my father returned home and waited. My mother arrived about a week later, and he introduced her to the pack as his mate and Luna. His parents were thrilled, and so was the pack, aside from a few. About a week or so later, while my father was busy negotiating with another pack, Blanche and 2 others attacked my mother. Phoebe stiffened, shocked by the idea wolves would actually attack their Luna. My mother was the daughter of a Gamma and had Beta blood, so she had plenty of training. Against 3 trained warriors, she held her own as long as she could. They might have killed her if my dad's Gamma hadn't arrived in time. Needless to say, my father was furious when he saw his Luna in the hospital, and when he learned who did it, he flew off the handle. He marched down to the cells where the she-wolves were imprisoned. He gave them 3 choices if they wanted to live. 1, submit to their Luna. 2, transfer to another pack. Or 3, he would banish them to be rogues. Phoebe caressed his arm, sensing his disquiet, and wanting to soothe him. Jason sighed, closing his eyes and submitting to her presence. They chose to submit. My mom had her Luna ceremony, and for a while it was fine, except after that day my mother insisted on 2 guards at all times, handpicked by her. I can't imagine what my father thought, knowing his Luna didn't feel safe in her own pack because of him, but that was her condition for staying. Not long after she became pregnant with me, she was almost 5 months along when Blanche attacked her a second time, this time with a silver knife. Phoebe shuddered looking at him. Werewolf pregnancies generally only lasted 6 months, so he had been nearly to term when his mother was attacked. The silver could have killed them both. Jason grimaced at the concern shimmering in her eyes. If it weren't for her bodyguards, we would almost certainly have died, Jason said. My father was away for an alpha meeting. When he returned and learned what happened, he flew into a rage. According to his beta, he didn't even let Blanche say 2 words before he broke her neck with such force he nearly ripped her head clean off. But the damage was done. My mother never fully trusted my father nor any members of the pack after that. They were never able to properly bond with her. Phoebe bit her lip. I never wanted my mate to go through that, and I'll never regret waiting for you. You are perfect, my angel. Phoebe propped herself up so she could look at him. Sympathy and concern shimmered in her eyes as if feeling his pain and disappointment from decades ago. Jason smiled. He loved that about her. Despite her rejection, her heart was open and ready to share his every hurt and insecurity. Smiling, he pulled her close, kissing her deeply. You don't have to worry, Angel, he nuzzled her. It's been years. But it still hurts, Phoebe said, her hand resting on his chest. Time doesn't make pain go away, it just buries it a little deeper. Jason grimaced. She wasn't wrong. After hearing his mother's story, he resented his father for many years and used Blanche as ammunition whenever they argued. It didn't help that many of their arguments were about Jason's abstinence. Outside the patio was strung with blue and white Christmas lights and paper lanterns. His mother had wheeled out the old piano and amused herself by playing dance songs for the younger pups until their bedtime. Later they would rely on the sound system to play songs from a playlist for the older pups and adults. Though it was his birthday, Jason stepped out from the pack house alone to accept the pack's congratulations. Ignoring the she-wolves eager for his attention, he spent most of the night with his sister, Luke and Ben. Halfway through the night, his father took him aside. Aren't you going to ask any of these fine ladies to dance? I have no reason to. Now, son, it isn't polite to ignore such beauties. None of them are as beautiful as my mate. Oh, you've met her? His father was confused. A wolf could scent their mate as soon as both awakened. Since alphas awakened early, it was usually several years before they found their mates. All the she-wolves at the party were from neighboring packs, so Jason met most of them already. Not yet, but I know she's out there. Well, yes, his father sighed, disappointed. It's not good for a young, virile male to ignore such fine she-wolves. It's okay to explore while you're young. How else will you know what you like? Like you did with Blanche? His father's mouth dropped. How did you... your mother? Embarrassed? You should be. His father growled, warning, but Lobo was already on guard. Jason's wolf practically laughed at their father's attempt to be intimidating. How could you do that to her? Now, I didn't. I visited that pack a dozen times before and never scented her. She was always visiting her maternal grandparents. If I had known, I wouldn't have. It was a mistake. A mistake? So what is your excuse for keeping that slut around after you found your mate? Jason challenged. She even attacked and almost killed her once, and you didn't think she would try again? She almost killed both me and Mom. Was that a mistake too?" His father bowed his head, no doubt, being berated by his own wolf. Because of his father's actions, they had almost lost their mate. Though their mate lived, she refused to have any intimacy with them, going as far as to isolate herself during her heat cycles, rather than seek him out. Lucille's conception and birth was practically an accident, as Nora's heat coincided with a large celebration, and she failed to recognize the warning signs. "I won't make your mistakes." "And how will you know what you like?" his father asked. "What will you tell your mate?" Jason snorted, "What I like." His father's face grew bright red as Jason walked away. That was only the first of several arguments. Jason was sure his father probably pleaded with his mother to talk to him and explain what had happened, but she had already done that. She was not going to make any excuses for his father's behavior. She also saw no reason to convince Jason to change his mind if he wanted to wait for his mate. Though his mother never said as much, Jason suspected the event traumatized her more than she let on. Even after Blanche was disposed of, Nora maintained her guards and insisted on a guard for Jason when he was a toddler. Jason never understood why there was always a large warrior around until much later. She also maintained a separate bedroom. His father struggled to be in her good graces, giving her gifts of every sort, flowers, chocolates, jewelry, but he could never give her what she really wanted, to go back in time before they had met and do things differently. The forced separation from his mate definitely had an effect on his father as the years progressed. He lost weight as well as authority. It became more obvious after Jason gained his wolf. As Lobo grew stronger and more dominant, his fathers withdrew even more. Werewolves aged slowly, but Jason's father seemed to age every day before finally succumbing. It was painful to see a once powerful alpha waste away in his bed, but Jason had become bitter waiting for his own mate and didn't have sympathy to spare on a father he gave up on. Thinking back on it now, Jason supposed he should have taken the opportunity to find some closure, but he let the moment slip away. Even though his mother had distanced herself in life, she was at his father's bedside until the end, as was Lucille. Their father had showered her with affection, treating her like his princess, and guarded her closely from any males that tried to get her attention. Phoebe stroked his cheek, stirring him from his thoughts. She gently smiled, as if knowing his pains. Jason stared at her. Phoebe had been rejected by her first mate. He had been told it was like having one's heart ripped out. How could she survive and still have such an open heart ready to take on another's pain while hers lingered? Pulling her close, he kissed her deeply. She responded by grinding against him, and his nostrils flared with the scent of her arousal. Growling, he tightened his embrace and rolled them over so she was under him. She was so warm, loving, and perfect. "Angel." "Shh," Phoebe caressed his face. "Whatever mistakes your father made, he was proud of you for being better than him. I'm sure of it." Jason groaned, capturing her mouth fiercely. He needed her. He needed her to heal him as he longed to heal her. He would give everything to erase her past.